Bless this mess. I just got finished seeing Hercules, Legend of Hercules in 3D, and holy shit, this movie was wow. I absolutely loved it, and I was the only one in the theater, and I am so glad because I was laughing the entire movie and having a ball. Bless this mess. Yeah, Legend of Hercules. It's the first Hercules film of the year, and the first of at the off the top of my head four ancient Greek slash Roman movies come out this year. And this month we have Hercules. Next month we have Pompeii. March we have 300. And I got both those trailers in front of this one, and the 3D and both those look good, and they look like they had more money than this film. Um, but yeah, Hercules. It's not a good movie. I'm going to be flat. I would say it's not that good of a movie, but damn, is it not entertaining? I absolutely had a ball watching this movie, and I'll say 3D was probably a part of it. This movie opens. I'm sorry, I'm so scatterbrained right now. This movie opens on D-Day, the ancient Greek version of D-Day. The film opens and it's a shot inside water. The camera's moving up towards the surface. You have soldiers and helmets and arrows and javelins. You have debris falling towards you. Camera comes out through the water, and you're in the middle. You're on Omaha Beach. There's arrows flying towards you. There's javelins flying towards you. Sorry, had to move because there's a dog on my lap. Um, and it's all done in one continuous take where the camera comes up, it goes through, and it travels past these soldiers running across the beach, travels through smoke, and then there's cavalry, travels through fire, and then there's a. So I mean, it's a one taker that obviously was shot in segments. I'm a sucker for one takes. I'm a sucker for that kind of slightly self indulgent kind of filmmaking. I do love a good one take, and I do love because I think it's a moving camera is much more immersive than just a camera on a tripod kind of thing. But so yeah, the film opens with Evil King, played by Scott Adkins, taking of Tiger, taking over the kingdom of Argos. His wife isn't that very happy, and she's like, you took Egypt because they threatened us. You take Argos because you wanted the gold. You're a tyrant," and she goes to goddess Athena to ask for help to bring down her husband. Athena says, "Well, I'll allow Zeus to knock you up because he's lusting after you if it's for the greater good." After talking through a priestess who has ooga booga eyes, after she's possessed by the goddess, and Hercules is born. Atkins is pissed, knows that he ain't the daddy, and grows up into Kellen Lutz. And that's basically it. Kellen Lutz, he falls in love with this visiting Crete princess, and wants to run away with her, but the older brother is betrothed to her, and he's sort of sent away, hopefully to die. Turns out he didn't die, and he comes back to reclaim his kingdom and to oust his dad. That's effectively the film in a nutshell. It was exactly what I thought it would be, and in a way, it was also very disappointing. Sort of come down off my high. When I first heard about this film, it was because the other Hercules film coming out this year is by Brett Ratner and stars The Rock. I think it's called like Hercules: The Thracian Wars or something like that, where it's much more gritty, the gritty, realistic take on something that's really fantastical. And when I heard about this one, I remember reading like initial interviews and reports that this was going to be a little more indulgent. They were going to more respect the Greek mythos and the gods. And I was hoping for like seeing maybe not all of Mount Olympus, maybe seeing a bit of Zeus, maybe seeing some cool mythological critters. And there's about as much myth and mysticism in this film as there is in the new Conan movie. As in, it's one of these films where I remember, I forget what they called it on that film. That sort of, I think, gritty magic or whatever it was. Like they basically just sprinkled enough into it, and the rest of the film is You know, you could watch probably if you cut out the maybe 5 minutes of uh, mythology references and the direct sort of superhuman, supernatural kind of things that happen. You honestly could watch the entire film and not even realize it. There's a in the trailer. There's a big cool lightning whip that Ken Lutz has for about 30 seconds. Zeus knocking up the bomb, obviously. You could probably cut around it to make it seem that she sired a bastard, which she kind of did, or mortal one, I should say. And beyond that, and kind of lets the trailer where he yanks down the pillars where he's being held up when he's whipped. There's really not much in there. Oh, and the priestess with Ooga Booga eyes. When she gets possessed, her eyes turns like that kind of milky, pasty gray color that's really popular with possession movies. Um, so in a way, I was very disappointed in that because otherwise the movie, it it was like almost like the Spartacus TV show in a way. That's I've not watched the entire series. I watched the first couple episodes, but it's like this reminds me of Spartacus because obviously there's a part of the film where Hercules is a slave and he's fighting various arenas, and there's a mud wrestling. It's lethal mud wrestling is his first match. Ooh, hello. But yeah, it's not. It's a best, but bless this mess. I absolutely had a blast with it. And any of my friends who are like, "Really, Rick?" You know me, guys. You know I dig on these kind of movies, and in fact, it's in 3D made it even better. Um, just on D-Day on Omaha Beach, there's arrows and javelins flying out at you, and I dig on that stuff, and I love it even more because so few films are doing that nowadays, so they only do a couple of shots. Um, I enjoyed this movie. Yeah, it's not that good, but I will say Rennie Harlan, the director of the film, did Die Hard 2. He did Cliffhanger, The Covenant, 12 Rounds, Driven. He's done some decent films. He's done some not so good films. One of the last films I saw of his was called 5 Days of War, about journalists in the Russia Odessa conflict, and that was actually pretty decent. And I will give credit where credit's due. The film is over the top, and it's obvious that probably that Harlan took a big page from the 300 textbook because every fight sequence has the speed ramping where it's quick then slow then fast again. It's every single fight, and it's always happening. And you know what? I dug on it. It got to the point where it wasn't. I was just lost in it. I was having a ball, and I was the only one in the theater because I was roaring and having a good time. I'm pretty sure the guy who's doing the screen checking was a little confused or a little like, who the hell is this crazy person? Um, but I will get credit where credit's due. I honestly think some people should take away from this movie that this movie should be served as maybe some inspiration, which is weird. But Harlan, where credit is credit, Rennie Harlan keeps the camera steady and keeps the cuts balanced. Instead of having a 15-second, let's say a 10-second portion of a fight, nowadays having 7 or 8 cuts in 10 seconds during a fight sequence is not out of the question. Here, in the same 10 seconds, there's maybe 4 cuts. It's much slower cut, even, and it's not all it's not all medium shots and close-ups, medium shot, close-up, extreme close-up, extreme close-up. It's very balanced, and once again, credit where credit's due. The fight sequences were well choreographed, and they showed off the fact that they were well choreographed. They showed off, um, the fact that they're using the wire work, and they were having actors grabbing each other and throwing each other around. Credit where credit is due. The fight sequences really did impress me a bit. I really did enjoy them, and the fact that it proved, I think, that you can have a really dynamically done fight sequence without cutting a movie to ribbons. And I can watch a film that's quickly cut, and I can generally understand it. And sometimes it works, other times it doesn't work. And to get that perfect balance of that kinetic editing style and make it work and make it illegible, is kind of tough, and generally it doesn't work. But here, taking a much more old school approach, taking a much older approach, might probably come from Rennie Harlan, the fact that he was one of the big action directors in the '90s. Probably definitely plays into it. And so I did enjoy the fight sequences; those were well done. Um, my big complaint about them is that they should just gone for broke and gone for an R. And one quick before I get to that, but one of the fight sequence, because Hercules knows this neighboring Greek king, he's in Egypt. This neighboring Greek kingdom has a series of arena battles. He knows if he can get to that battle, he can escape and go be with his true love, the Greek princess. So he convinces his owner to take him there, but the owner says, "Well, you and your friend are undefeated, but I have these two other fighters who are undefeated. I'll put all four of you together. Whoever wins gets to go to Greece." And the entire battle takes place in an arena, but on pillars that are interconnected, and below it there are spikes. And that was pretty cool, because these blocks are maybe maybe 2.5 foot, 3 foot across. But anyway, this film should have gone for broke and just gone for the R. I can understand probably financially this is like a $70 million movie. They want to get as many people in the seats as possible. Fans of Twilight will recognize kind of Lutz. They want to get those teens in the seats. I can understand a PG-13, but a Swords and Sandals movie almost requires an R, because a gun, you can mask a squib by blowing off some fabric and having a small puff of something. A sword's entirely different. You're hacking into flesh. You're cutting limbs. You can cut limbs off. You're stabbing people. It's very brutal. It's very nasty. And that part was sort of highlighted when the opening of the film, where Scott Adkins is attacking Argos. He, challenges the king to a one-on-one battle. He defeats him. Sword comes down. It's like, okay, he cut off his freaking head. Camera's above him, and the dude's head is still attached. His helmet, though, is like 2 inches away. So it's like, did he just, smack his helmet? No, it's not like, he didn't stab vertically down. He slashed down to cut his head off. So part of me does hope that there's an R-rated cut out there, and that it'll get released to Blu-ray, because I'm not one who says R equals quality, but in certain cases you kind of do need the R. You do need the blood and the gore and the chopping off limbs and all that. So I have to wait for 300 to come out to get that fix. But where there's a lot of wire work and all that, the fight scenes are pretty cool, but other times it just doesn't work. And part of the films that doesn't work that I really enjoy was some of the rather weak CGI. And one of the Legends of Hercules was this big lion that was so strong it cannot be killed by blades, and so Hercules has to snap his neck. And then when you first hear the roar, it's like, him and his brother, and Hercules is going, "Get behind me," and it's like, they hear the roar, and then the lion jumps up, and it looks better than the Sci-Fi Channel, but maybe not by much. So this movie definitely has a lot of money. A lot of money was put into it, and some of the costumes design was really cool. The Egyptian elite guard has this really awesome wolf kind of armor, but it needed more money. And you know what? The film reminded me, when I was watching the entire film, it reminded me of Golden and Globus and Cannon movies and all those Italian Swords and Sandals films, where you can tell at times, yeah, money was there. Other times, the money, they stretched the money too much. They you can't blame the film for not trying to have some ambition. So yeah, and that's also where the money went certain places. It should have gone a little more to the compositing for the green screen, because there are times where it is so plainly obvious that these folks are on a sound stage, or even if they're outside, that behind them has been tinkered with. Well, get up here, dog. Sorry, doggy. Hey, licorice. But yeah, so yeah, the money went other places. CG probably wasn't one of them. the environments, the CGI environments of like the palace looked fine, but when it got down to the details like animating people, it was lacking. But you know what? In a way, that was part of the charm. That why I like these movies is because in a way they remind me of my childhood. I can watch and go, yeah, I remember growing up on these movies that might not have aged well, and I'm viewing them through the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia. These kind of movies remind me of my childhood, and that the small 7-year-old sitting in front of the television just enjoying the heck out of these old movies. Because there's definitely an over the topness, and there's a ridiculousness, and there's a pageantry to all of it. Um, not, I think I'm one of the few people who really just dug on this movie. I really enjoyed it, and if you know my taste in movies, that shouldn't be a surprise. If you don't know my taste in movies, well, I got a Sharknado calendar sitting behind me. Uh, I love ridiculous movies. I absolutely love them to death. And talk to any of my friends about the ideas I have. They're no, you're not going anywhere. But um, moving on to like the acting and all that, it was sort of Kellen Lutz. I'm only familiar with him from Twilight, which isn't saying much, and from his 5 minutes in Immortals as Poseidon. So okay, he definitely looked the part of Hercules. I mean, when if you mention Hercules, I would imagine a little bit longer hair, but physically, the guy definitely had the presence. He was okay. Scott Adkins as the king just was growling left and right. The actor who played Hercules' older brother just that was a moment where I just leaned back and said, "No, bad movie." Where the princess is sleeping in bed. She's betrothed to him. She hates him. It's during a lightning storm outside, and you see this dark shape looming towards the camera, and like, oh, what's that? I was like, oh, it's the older brother, and leans in, leans in, leans in, and then right about here, lightning flash. There he is, full frame in 3D, and I was like, no move. That for some reason that just made me lean back in my seat, like, no movie, bad movie. You don't scare me like that. Rod Sergebiga, I cannot pronounce his last name, aka Boris the Bullet Dodger from Snatch, shows up as the wise old mentor. And this is when the accents come around, because Americans, we view foreign accents. We basically view four foreign accents. We view British, French, German, and Russian. Um, that's for us as foreigners. And this film, yeah, we definitely not Greek accents. Callum Lutz does sort of a half British accent. Um, Atkins sort of does a hodgepodge between British and American that's mostly edged towards American when he gets to his growly yelly place. Rod is definitely a very Eastern European accent, and suddenly Rennie Harlan, the director, shows up in a cameo with a very. I mean, Harlan has a very deep, gravelly voice that. I mean, suddenly he shows up in a cameo and talks. It's like, oh, it's Rennie Harlan, so he's from Finland. So suddenly a Finnish guy shows up. So it is in a way a bit of a magical hodgepodge of accents and dialogue and all that. And speaking of the actors, I did enjoy Scott Adkins because he was so over the top in his performance that I just could not help. Yeah, he's the evil king, you hate him, but I just loved him so much as he's just chewing the senior like no, but like it's a good fine steak. He's just chowing down on it, teeth on full display with his big fuck off beard. It was brilliant. Um, and speaking of actors, I will get to a really interesting point where Hercules' mom and Scott Adkins, the stepdad, they don't age. There's no older age makeup. There's no Atkins' beard in the 20 years it took Hercules to grow up. His beard got more luscious and darker and full than it was in the opening of the film. His mother got a tiny little coif of gray hair. That was it. And you know what? She's like, "You're the son of Zeus. You're my son." It's like, and I'm looking at Ken Lutz going, he's, or the older brother's looking at his mom like, like, you worry about the son that you've lost, but not about the son who is here. I'm like, you're old enough to be her brother. You know, she's old enough to be your brother, or maybe in a weird way, your really young, really old daughter. You have a daughter really young, and she's getting older. I cannot buy her as your mother. Um, so yeah, I'm really running out of things to talk about because, uh, yeah, I'm actually it's weirdly forgettable too. But you know what? I had a blast, and oh, Jonathan Sick, or I can't pronounce his last name. He's shown up on a lot of television. Shows up as this because Hercules is set into a trap that he's meant to be killed by these Egyptian soldiers, and Seish doesn't realize that that's Hercules. So he thinks he killed the prince, so he sells him to slavery. But they're the ones with these really cool wolf kind of armor that I'm pretty sure Egyptian soldiers didn't wear during that time, but they had the proper sickle sword. I will give the film that it does take some liberties, but there are other things that there's small little touches here and there from history that you pick up on that watching the History Channel every day before it became the Alien and Mythical Monsters Are Real channel. You pick up on that stuff, and it goes, oh, that's a nice touch here and there. But he's a white guy who shows up as an Egyptian with cornrows, and is random, but okay, I can dig it. Um, that's I well, that's what once again, it's not a good movie, I will say, but oh my god, it is incredibly entertaining. I had a blast watching this movie. And you know what? I will definitely say 3D was a part of it. The film was shot by Sam McCurdy, who filmed The Descent and Doomsday, and he's Neil Marshall's director of photography. He's brilliant DP, great eye, and the 3D was pretty good. There was definitely a lot of stuff flying on the screen. Harlan does shoot through a lot of pillars and through a wispy and CG pollen, CG confetti flying around. So there's definitely an attempt to let's use 3D. Let's put stuff out here. Then we have stuff back here, and then we have the actors. So I can dig on that. This movie was just incredibly entertaining. I will say, once again, credit where credit, Harlan can really just create sometimes an incredibly entertaining film. Some of his other movies I really don't like all that much, but Cutthroat Island is a blast. His pirate film from like '93 that effectively killed off the pirate movies all in and sunk the studio that produced it. But that's the film that everyone referenced when the first Pirates movie came out and just said, "Oh, this is going to become Cutthroat Island Part 2." Um, but so yeah, Hercules is insanely entertaining, and once again, I don't want to hear any of my friends, any of my coworkers going, "Rick, how could you enjoy this?" It's what guys, it's me. Come on, you should know by now. My taste just travels from Casablanca to Sharknado. It's all over the map. Um, but so yeah, yeah. What can I say about it? I had a blast. Bless this mess. I loved it. Certainly not everyone's going to love it, so I can't really recommend it to a lot of people. But if you do enjoy just completely, wandering slightly bonkers movies, that honestly should have, if they went full bore with this thing, and had Hydra or some other, or maybe Griffin or some other kind of critter show up, that just would have reached this state of nerdish nirvana. I would have loved it even more. But so yeah, that's Hercules, and I would definitely say if you're going to watch Hercules, watch it in 3D because there are a number of gratuitous shots of objects coming towards the camera in slow motion, pulling back out. Harlan does exploit 3D to that was my dog. Exploit 3D to the ridiculous potential of throwing crap out of the screen. That if you watch it in 2D, it's going to be one of these really obvious movies that was filmed for 3D, and you're just going to go, oh, that's redundant. Oh, I don't like that. That doesn't work. So I would definitely say 3D is the way to go. And they did shoot it in 3D, so that's always good in my book. But yeah, Legend of Hercules, the first of four, potentially more fantasy movies based in Greek and Roman myth, the first of the Hercules movies. I absolutely had a blast with it. Once again, no one should be surprised by this. And bless this film, bless this movie, bless Rennie Harlan, bless everyone involved with it. Thank you. It was a great way to kill the afternoon. Okay? Talk to you later. I think my dog is hungry. She's starting to lick a book. Am I right, Licorice? You're just licking a book.